Okay, now this initialize env vars is a method. What is the responsibility of this method is opening a txt file in read mode using open function. This is open function, okay, in Python, which opens a file default in a read mode. Okay, so we are opening our file in a read mode. Then we are going to read that file. So basically this open function opens the file and its handle it gives us in this variable. We can give any name to this variable. So we are opening a file and the handle variable is kept here in this variable. Then txt file dot read line, we are reading the line, and then we are splitting that line. Why we are splitting? Because if you see, this is a file where we have kept our driver paths, then we will keep our application URL also. So let's say our application URL is http://google.com. This is our application URL. Okay. Now these settings are stored in this file in this format. A setting name, comma, and the value of the setting. Now here we are reading a line and then we are splitting that line in two segments. And what is the splitter we are using to split it? This comma. So this comma is nothing but a splitter. At this point we are slicing the line and we are getting the two sections created, right? So this and then this. Then we are storing them in this list. So basically this split gives you the list of strings having the parts of the splitted line. In line parts of 0 we will have this, and of 1 we will have this, right? So that's what we have got now. Then what we are doing here is we are saving basically this value, that is this we are storing in a dictionary against this key. We are storing this value in a dictionary against this key, and this value in a dictionary against this key. So how we are doing it? We are doing it in this way, right? So utils or .env vars of key name equal to value. So once the first line will be read, that line would be splitted. So this line would be splitted. This would be in a key name variable. This would be in a value variable, right? Just a minute. This would be in a value variable, and then this value will go in a dictionary against this key using this statement. That's what we achieved here, right? Great. Now yes, correct. Now that is what we have achieved here. So we will get one dictionary having all these settings stored against some keys. Okay, that's what we have achieved. Now let's go back to our switcher for a second. Now this switcher, this start Chrome driver, this function we have implemented in invoke drivers py here. Now we will just import it, automation framework API correct. We have imported a web test and we will import a utils class, right? So in our this start Chrome driver function, what will happen is our driver would be instantiated. Our driver would be instantiated webdriver.chrome, and the path of the driver will now be taken from this dictionary envvars dictionary. So utils.envvars.get, and then we will pass this as a key. So it will give us this whole path, and that is how it will work, isn't it? So here in our login page class, right? So in our login page class, what we will do is, here is our base page. This constructor is going to get called first, right? So I would say utilities. I'll explain you the flow, don't worry. So utilities, just a minute, let me get that switcher invoke drivers. I will get this utils. I'll go here. I'll import it. Initialize envvars. Now let's understand the flow. Okay. Now let's go to the test case. This is where our execution starts from. So first, what will happen? We will call a login page constructor with Chrome as an argument. So let's go in. So here we will get that browser name accepted, CHROME, all capital. Then we are calling a superclass constructor, this one. First, what we are doing, we are calling that initialize envvars function from utilities class, from utilities Python module. Here we have created one blank dictionary at class level. This is the method which we have called now. What this method will do, it will open a file in a read mode, and it will read the file line by line. After reading the line, it will split the line with comma to get these two sections separated out from each other, this and this. Okay. Then key name. So the first section, this one, would be stored in key name, and this one would be stored in value, which ultimately will get stored in a dictionary, envvars dictionary. This value, that actual path, would be stored against the key name. Chrome driver path store will get stored against the Chrome driver path key name. Firefox driver path will get stored against the Firefox driver key name, and applications that URL http://google.com would be stored. So that is this google.com would be stored against this key in a dictionary, right? Then our execution will come back to this base page, and it will create our web test object. Once the base page constructor would be executed, like it's done its execution, then our control will come back to the login page constructor, from where it will call our start test method. Start test with the browser name again, Chrome. So here we will get that CHROME all capital we will get here. Then we are calling open browser with that. So open browser here, we will get that CHROME. And then in our switcher, this has to be a capital then, because we are sending a capital, right? So that exact key should be there. So we can decide on that whenever you will send in the browser name, it should be sent in a capital, and accordingly the keys are to be defined. So CHROME key, so dot get, so this start Chrome driver function name would be returned right here, and then that function we are calling. So what that function is doing, let's go here. So this function got called, and it is setting our driver webdriver.chrome and the driver path. Now where it is getting that driver path from, it is getting it in that envvas dictionary which got created when we called this method. When we call this method, we got a dictionary created having these values stored against these keys, isn't it? Which we just talked about. So invoke drivers here, utils.envvas.get Chrome driver path. It will get the path and it will ultimately invoke the driver. Now let's run it. Let me see where is the error actually. Unindented label. Okay, let me, as of now, right, and I'm just commenting these things out. These things I had written when I was explaining you about how our framework will look like, but we haven't yet implemented this method, so I'm just commenting it out. Once we will implement it, I'll uncomment it. Okay, now still it has got deleting it. Now there is a problem with the indentation out here. Let me correct it. Yes, now everything is fine. Now this, when we will run this now, our test cases file, this file when we will run, right? So now what I'll do is, let me open my another project. I'll just get the name. I think the name is this, test, exactly. So the name should be, as we have already learned guys, if you guys remember that if you want to use PyTest, then your test case file name should start with word test. Then only the PyTest considers that file as a test case file. So I'm just renaming our file so that correct. Now I have renamed it. Oh, okay. Just a minute. again I need to rename it just to, yes, refactor. Just a minute. Already exists. Where it is? Okay. Anyways, what I'll do is I'll just copy this code and I'll create a new file, Python file. I'll just keep the name test underscore check login with valid credentials .py. So this is our test case file. Perfect. Now this we can run using our PyTest, right? So let's do that. It's very simple. We have already seen this in our just a minute, in our unit testing with PyTest. So it's a PyTest, enter. Just a minute. Yes, so I just need to be, I got it. I just need to be in this. I'm not in the test cases directory, right? So I would go to the test cases directory, pages, test cases, and then I would say PyTest. Now the question is, this should be starting with this, because the functions starting with the word test in small, PyTest considers them to be the test case functions, right? So we need to, yes, take care of it. So that's fine. We have got the error, that's fine, but that is how. Now it is saying that we don't have this, this selenium. It didn't find that selenium. Okay, let me check now. WebDriver exception, executor needs to be path. Okay, but it is indeed. Wait, let me see the problem. But I have already kept it in a, I mean, we have mentioned the path, that's not a problem. Then why it is giving us the error? Let me see. Executable needs to be in path, but why? We have given you a path, right? Why it needs to be in a path environment variable? Let me check. Just a minute. CHROME. Okay. Then in our switcher, we have got CHROME. Start Chrome driver. Correct. Invoke drivers. And we have already given it a executable path. Chrome driver path. It is okay. Let me see the. Oh, how I got this blank? Okay, wait. Let me take those. Oh, I don't know how it became blank. This file. Let me put the path. So I am going to this T. Just a minute. Python. These are the drivers, right? Somehow this file of ours got blank. Oh no, this is login page txt. No, sorry. No, I'm sorry. It has to be this. So here we have given it, right? So sorry, why it is then asking us to? Okay, let me see. There is some problem with the function we have written here. Let's debug it. So here you can I am just removing this file now. Now let's run it one more time, and then if it doesn't work, then we'll debug. Let me put a breakpoint. I'll not put it here, I'll put it in move drivers. Here I'll put it. Paste. And now let's debug. So for debugging, edit configurations, Python tests, and here I'll mention the script path. This is right here, orange HRM test cases, and this is our test case file. So I have created a configuration. Now we can debug. Okay, we need to create here, right? So I would say test login. This is our file. I'll say OK, and let's debug it. So this is how. Just a minute. Let me stop it. Let me just stop. Let me debug it now. It has started. Where is our just a minute. I think it's got some problem. Let me put a breakpoint here. PyTest, we have not installed PyTest. Wait up. I think we have done it, right? We install PyTest. Maybe in this new project we have not done it. Okay. Nevertheless, correct, it is here now. Absolutely fine. Now you guys just see, like I want to go inside this. Now I would say step into. Step into will take you inside the function. See, now from here I am again doing step into, which is taking me here. From here I am again doing step into, which is taking me here. Exactly. Now I don't want to go inside this open function because it's not written by me, it's Python function. So I'm not interested in debugging that. So I will say step over. This is a step over. So which is coming inside, correct, absolutely fine. Now you guys can see here, it is showing us everything. Correct, perfect. Now I have got this line. So this line is this one, correct. Then I'm saying correct, step over, step over, step over. How it came out actually, it should have been into the loop. Okay, we will see it afterwards, but let me see what is the problem here. Now I'll do step into, here also step into, not interested here, step over. Here let's see the problem. Correct, now I'll see. Okay, now it should have started. Okay, let me see. Now it looks all fine. Okay, let me try running it now. Sorry, CLS. I test. Why it is not getting it? Okay, maybe the path. Okay, let me check this. This seems to be a culprit actually. This one here. Why it didn't? Oh, I got it. Correct. I have to write it in a loop, right? Otherwise, how it would, loop it through. So this read line, we will check this read line, correct. So I would say wait a minute, I'm just checking readline function, what it returns. I'm not sure. I don't really remember all these things. I always use Google for it. Readline Python. Guys, let me tell you a very interesting point. When you will attend an interview, okay, this has happened with me, that's why I'm telling you. Just few days back, I had an interview in A4 Technologies. Okay, and that guy made me search something on the Google. Okay, he asked me some question. Okay, and he said search it on the Google. Why? Because searching is also a skill. You cannot see, first of all, when you are working on any automation project and you are into a development, right? So seldom you guys need to search for on the Google. Like say for example, he asked me about FluentWeight. Okay, and he said go and search the Selenium doc for its help. Deliberately he had asked me to do it. Why? Because he wanted to see that if a person during the implementation, if he gets stuck somewhere and now he has to go to go for look into the Google now how the person searches, and once he put a search string in the Google search engine, I mean, does he put those keywords which will help him land on the correct pages or not? So this is also happening now in the interviews, that interviewer asks you to search and they observe that how do you search. Okay, how do you search a particular thing on the Google? So this is also very important point. You need not you need not know everything. Like the syntaxes, these are useless to be remembered. I mean, I don't remember them at all. So I always search it on the Google and then I try to understand, okay, what it returns and how do I then need to frame my code. So this read line, you can see here what it returns is what is important for us. Second line, but if the file is empty, then what it returns, let me see. Okay, let me try it in this way. And one more point, guys, like in the interview there were a lot of interesting questions were being asked, which I would like to share with you. One question, I mean, first of all, I'll just tell you like what are the different rounds A4 technologies they have. I got selected, but I didn't accept their offer because it was not according to my expectation. That is a different story. But let me tell you, like, what is their interview process, and it is a very good company, seriously, and they have got very good projects and everything. I had a round with their MD as well, Mahesh Kulkarni. So yeah, so the round, and very interesting, the interview process they have. So the first round was, I mean, they send you one coding test. Means they ask you to write a framework. It need not be the that end to end or something kind of, but they just wanted to understand the design principles. Like, are you guys clear enough in implementing the object oriented principles? I mean, the way we learned these things in our session, right? That's the reason we learned it, because that person who took my first round of interview, he was interested in knowing whether this person knows where to use method overriding, where to use method overloading, then where to use interfaces, abstract classes. So like that was their first round where they wanted to know whether, so they asked you to write a framework, a short framework, which I already have, and I already have it on my GitHub repository. It is already there. I mean, it was not created for any interview purpose or so, but I just created it out of my own interest. Like one of my students, Nehal, she wanted it, the framework where like she would be able to run the same test on all the platforms like web, desktop as well as mobile. So like I had created it around 3-4 years back, and then I had pushed it to the Git also, so it is still there on the Git. And that concept he really liked. That's what I would like to mention here, that in that first round of an interview, like they said me, I mean, they had given me one coding, that assignment. So I said, I already have a created framework, so would you mind if I send you my GitHub repository link? So they said, okay, send us, you don't need to then go through this, whatever the particular coding assignment is. So then they got my GitHub link, and then I got my first round of interview scheduled. Now in that round, that person made me share the screen, and he asked me to explain the thought process behind the framework, like what this framework is and which object oriented principles are used and why it is used in this way and not in the other way. The way I usually explain in my object oriented this concept sessions. So those questions he actually asked me. So like how then the abstract is being used, how then the cross platformness is introduced here, and he got impressed because of that, this particular framework can be used to write the script. The script written for, let's say, iOS can be executed on iOS, Android, or written for Android can be executed for web also. As I keep mentioning this, that in my organization, the framework which we have created, we don't write the script multiple times. We write it only once, and we have in the framework using runtime polymorphism, we have managed to run it on the multiple platforms, and that way it has been created. So that particular to implement this, how the object oriented concepts are used. So that was the first round which I had there. Then the next round was like, after that there were quite nominal rounds. There was with the engineering head, there was a round, and then I had a round with their MD as well. So those were all pretty much nominal, but these initial 2 rounds were quite interesting. And in that first round of interview, he asked me to explain the object oriented principle implementation, how can it be done and all. And then few questions he asked me, very interesting questions which I would like to share. The first question was, if I have 3 statements, click and find element. So this click, find. Now I also ask these questions whenever I conduct the interview. I also ask these questions now. I had answered him, like when he had asked me, I perfectly answered him, but then I was not aware of these interview questions, so I got those ideas. So find element. So let's say I have driver dot find element, and whatever XPath by ID, that's not a big deal. So driver dot find element and driver dot send keys. I mean not driver dot send keys, element dot send keys. So let me put it in this way. Driver dot find element is 1. Then we will get the element back. We will store it here. And then e dot click and e dot send keys. So his question was, out of these 3 statements, which is unlikely to throw stell element exception? Unlikely means which cannot throw stell element exception, and why? Okay, very interesting question. So what is stell element? Let's understand. Stell element means you have found out the element which is there in this E, and then you are using that for clicking, send keys and whatnot. But in between you found out the element and you are using the element, a DOM got refreshed, your page got refreshed somehow because of some operations performed. So in this case, like here you have found out the element and here you are using it, but before it comes here, if the page got refreshed after finding the element, it makes that element stell. Stell means invalid element now, because now the DOM has been refreshed, the states have been changed now, so it cannot be used further. That's what stell element. So which one is likely? If someone asks you which one is likely to throw, then this is the statement which is likely. And which is unlikely? This is always unlikely because it always finds the element again. So it will never throw you stell element. It may throw you no such element exception, but it will not throw you stell element at all. Stell element would be thrown by this. So he got that. So I explained him everything, this whatever I am explaining you right now. So that was very interesting question. Second, very important, and he was like, he just wanted to understand what is the understanding of this person. What is the understanding? So he asked me one very good question again about fluent wait. So he said, and that's when he made me search, because he wanted to see that how he searches and whether he lands on the correct page or not. So I had searched it for it, and so let's forget about that. How did I search it and all? But the question was very interesting. So question was, when will you use this explicit wait and fluent wait? So what is fluent wait? Basically that explicit wait, let me tell you the explicit wait first and then I'll get to the fluent wait. So basically explicit wait, when you say now you want to wait until the particular element becomes enable. It is only for a particular element, not for all, only a particular. So he asked me, like, give me one scenario where you will use implicit wait, one scenario where you will use explicit wait, and one more where you will use fluent wait. Scenarios, not definitions. Okay. So I gave him the scenario for implicit wait, explicit wait and fluent wait also. But then he said that what is the exact difference between fluent wait and explicit wait? So I said fluent wait has a more control. It gives us the more control. It gives us the control on polling. Polling means in the explicit wait, when you say wait until the button becomes enable, so that instruction you give. But then within how much time it checks, like after a particular time interval, the driver checks again that whether that particular element has become enabled or not. So this time interval after which it checks for it, it's called polling time, which is by default 500 milliseconds, means half a second actually it is. So if you want to increase it, or if you want to mention it, that what should be the polling time, so that polling time we can mention in the fluent weight. So fluent weight is nothing but explicit weight plus few extra controls on that explicit weight, like we can mention our polling time. So he said, no, that's fine. Apart from polling time, what extra we can do? So I said, we can ignore few exceptions. So he asked me, okay, can you give me one example where such kind of need may arise of ignoring few exceptions? Now this I would like to explain here. Now this is very important. I gave him the answer, so he liked it. That's a different point, but let me explain it. Let's say this is our application, and this button we are waiting for, like we have got some explicit wait, right? So there I have mentioned clickable. I want to wait till this button becomes clickable. But let's say the behavior of application is such that this button, when you enter the say username password, it gets verified. The username password gets verified, and once the verification is successful, a button appears, and then within few milliseconds it becomes clickable also. Now if you are ultimately when you want to resume your test execution is when the button becomes clickable, means enable, I mean. But as soon as you enter the values here, it will go to that wait statement, explicit wait. But this button, it will, if a driver doesn't find this button itself for which it has to wait for, then it will give you a no such element exception, because the button takes time to load and then it becomes clickable. So your explicit wait, which is actually waiting for that button to be clickable, but that button should be there first, right? But if the driver doesn't find that button, then it will throw you a no such element exception, even if you are in that explicit wait. So in such cases, if you want to ignore, now here I am not interested in that no such element, because I know that the button takes time to get loaded into the DOM and then it becomes clickable. So ultimately I want to wait until it becomes clickable, and I don't want to catch any other problems if there are any, like it is taking some time to get loaded and all that stuff. So there I will use ignore exceptions, and that's what fluent wait is. That's what fluent wait is, that it is a explicit wait plus few more controls on that. So these two questions were quite interesting, and to be very, and the rest of the questions were about the APM and all, like the strategy of iOS automation and all that stuff. That's fine, but these two questions and the framework related stuff, why I am telling you this about this framework is mostly I have observed that people are more into implementing some high fundo logic. It's not about that. It's about how do you use the object oriented principles to introduce the reusability, extendability in your frameworks. And that is very important. So when he was asking me the questions, if you guys go and check my GitHub repository, that framework, I have not implemented much of the things, but I have done the very clear design where the abstract class would be used, interfaces, and then the overriding would be done, how the cross-platformness would be managed based on the runtime polymorphism. So all that stuff I have made it very clear there. I don't have much of the code written in the functions. but he was only interested in understanding how the object oriented principles be effectively used to introduce scalability, extendability, and user friendliness in your framework. If you are, mostly in case of mobiles, I have seen this, that Android they have got different framework, web they have got different, iOS they have got different. Then I mean, nobody will get impressed because of with this particular solution. What is important is you have to come up with a single solution which will, and that is something challenging, that which will allow you to run the test on all of these three platforms. And how can you manage the implementation of such framework using, see, there is no hyphen to coding involved. What is important there is how you use your object oriented principle understanding to implement that. So that was the main focus there in my first round of interview there. And it was a very, very good experience with the A4 Technologies. I mean, the interviewers were absolutely superb. And I mean, they were more on to understanding, okay, how the design principles, and one more design principles, solid principle, guys, solid principles. Please, whenever you get time, okay, just search for this solid principles. So he asked me one very good question on this solid principle also. So he said, I mean, that was carried away with the discussion we were having that time, but I would just give you one subtract out of it. That he was saying that one of our my class has one method which my other child classes they don't require it. Now usually when you keep the method abstract or interfaces, keep the methods abstract basically. So I was saying that I will keep the method abstract as it doesn't have the implementation, and let the child decide how it can be implemented. But then he said not every child requires it. Now if you keep the method abstract, then every child compulsorily need to override it, which we should not put, which is not a good design principle. And then I said, okay, then we can use interfaces, we can implement, and the one which needs it, he will implement that interface, and that is with the solid, that goes with the solid principles, design principle. So he said, which principle out of this solid, there are 5 principles actually, SOLID. So 5 principles are there. So out of which is the principle you just talked about? I said dependency inversion. So dependency inversion means you should not ask the classes unnecessarily override the methods if they don't need it. So you should not put them into overriding them by keeping the methods abstract and all. So my point is that in the framework what matters is design principles and not the coding. Coding is absolutely, I'm telling you this, coding is all fine. I mean, anyone can do it. You can get the solutions on the web also. But when it comes to the design principles are very, very important in designing the framework. Because when you design the framework, the kind of principles you implement, that actually decides what is going to be the reusability of this framework, what is going to be the extendability of this framework, and what is going to be the reusability of this framework. So design principles are very, very important. So guys, today when you get a time, please search for solid principles. I'll just send you the chat message here. Solid principles, which are now, like, you know, the people who are into implementing the frameworks, they now look to implement the frameworks with this solid principles now. Solid principle. Right? So please look for it. I will explain you, don't worry, but just you guys read it out. We will talk about this solid principle because again this is something about related to the framework, right? So that's the reason. So just search for it, just read few things about it, and then I'll explain you what each of the principle. Every letter from this SOLID is a principle, right? So there are 5 principles. So we will talk about them, all of them, right? But first read it and then we will discuss. Maybe in our next week sessions we will discuss about the solid principles, but which is very important, and you will find the interview question on this also. Now when it comes to the question on the framework, they are not interested in, seriously saying, I'm saying they are not interested in understanding how you have written a for loop, if loop, this and that. But and one more interesting thing happened in this rounds. I had actually I think 4 or 5 rounds of interview. I had 4 rounds, I think so. First one was that coding round 1, and then 2, 3, 4 rounds I had, and I had a round with the MD, which was supposed to be the final round. But then he suddenly asked me to, he sent me, he just wanted to see how this person finds the solution for a problem. Okay, even if you don't reach to the solution, the end solution, that's fine, but he wanted to understand my ability to find the solution, how I think while coding. So he made me, he sent me one link. Okay, he sent me one link and he said share the screen and start writing the code. So he said, okay, you can use any of the editor of your choice and you can start. So even if, I mean, I was like, even he was also sure that within this 5-10 minutes of thing, it's not going to be possible. But how the person thinks while coding is very important. So that question also I would like to share. So the question was, if I enter a date, any date, let's say for example today's date, today is 9th June. Okay, so if I enter like this, 2021, now your program should print the number of a day, like what number of this date is in that year, means like 31 days from January, plus if the leap year, then plus 29, if not then plus 28, then March days would be added. That way, what is the number counting from the 1st Jan, what is the number of day is this, right? So that was the program. So I was explaining him, I was implementing, and while implementing I was also explaining him. So that also he liked that approach, that I'm just not only writing, I'm explaining also. Okay, what is this we are doing. Now keep this things in mind, because when you guys attempt a code sessions, usually what they want to actually understand, okay, even if you don't reach to the end of the implement, that's fine, but how do you think while implementing? How do you think that here I should use switch? How do you come to the conclusion that here I should use dictionary? So that they actually want to understand. It's fine even if you don't reach to the final solution. And in that round, and it was a round with the MD, it was not round with someone, you know, who is from the lower level or some that kind of stuff. He was a founder of that A4 Technologies. So I was having a round with him, but I was expecting that round to be a quite, you know, kind of managerial kind of round or something. But then suddenly he said, okay, share the screen, and he sent me the link where this question was there, and he said you can use any of your favorite IDE and start the code. So I said okay. So I was explaining him, and within just 5-10 minutes, 5 minutes or so, he said, okay, stop, I got it, that you are you are able to find the solutions for a problem, like you understand the problem statement well, and you have that understanding of how to get to the solution, what all different ways to think of, and how to approach towards it. So it was quite good. So why I'm sharing this experience with you is that usually in the coding rounds, people thinks that, okay, coding round is just to check the coding. I should always be, whenever I'll attempt it, I should always be able to find the solution. I should go till the end. No, it's not necessary. What is necessary is, when you are attempting that question, try to, when you are writing the code, try to explain your thought process so that the other person, so when I was explaining, he was also, correcting me. No, if you do it, then this will not happen. So I was not right all the time in that round also. Let me tell you this. But whenever he was saying something, no, this will give, if you implement it in this way, then this will not happen. So I used to tell him the second option. Okay, then this is the case, then we will use dictionary and then we will keep. So he was keep correcting me whenever I was wrong, and I was giving him the new solutions. So that is actually expected from this coding rounds. Okay, so it was very good experience, seriously, I had with them, and very good interview process they have. Right, so please look for this solid principles and try to write the code, this one which I just, any language that, and you guys are not going to use any library functions. So it was strictly mentioned there in that question also that no library functions would be used. Okay, a pure like based on your logic you are going to write it, right? So try to write this, like print, you write a code to print the number of a day a given date is in a year, right? Try this. Okay, yeah, so let's continue tomorrow. We will I'll just debug this issue, what this is. Maybe in the tomorrow session itself we will debug it, like what is the issue, let me see, and we will continue that. Okay, but very important, this I just, this interview and all happened, I think around 1 month back or so, I don't remember, but I wanted to share this, but somehow I used to forget it during our sessions. So today I just when I was searching for that, so I got it that okay, there was a question on this in an interview which I should share with you all. So if in an interview, if someone asks you to search, there he wants to see how do you search on a Google, and searching on a Google is not let me tell you this also, that searching on a Google is not a bad thing. No one can remember the syntaxes and all. It's a knack actually. It's a knack, seriously, it's a knack. How do you search and how do you get to the correct page once you read the content over there, how soon you understand it, and then how soon you can get on with the implementation of a solution which you are. So this is a knack, everyone cannot do it. So that is also gets checked during the interviews now, right? Okay, yes guys, so thanks a lot. So see you tomorrow.